During the second part of this introduction to Formate, we'll be looking at the Formate software itself, and specifically how we can create an application to intelligently take data, print, fax or email, depending on a customer code. In this case, we're going to use a sales invoice, but potentially it could be any business document. In simple terms, there are two Formate components: the Formate configurator and the Formate server, as shown here by the two icons on my desktop. You can purchase both Formate configurator and server, and once you've had some training, you'll be able to design and deploy some really amazing applications. We refer to this configuration as Formate Enterprise. However, if you've not got lots of IT resource, you can just purchase Formate server, and your Formate reseller will pick up all of the development work for you. Oh, and on another point, regardless of which scenario you go for, Formate is a site license. So on your nominated site, you can have any number of servers. You can have a live server, a backup, and a test server, and there's no limit on the number of input or output queues. Let's have a closer look at Formate Configurator. As the aim of this introduction is not to go through every feature, but to give you a brief overview, we'll open a Formate form type that we created earlier. You'll now see that the screen is divided into 4 panes, and the top left here we have the form type properties, and this is where we can import sample data, we can set up print runs, and we can even look up external databases. In this case, we're going to work with a text file, but equally so it could have been an XML file, or it could have been an external file like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, or perhaps a PDF file that contains a text layer. We'll now import the sample data. The sample data now appears in our spool file window, and you can see that it's divided the data into 5 separate jobs. Now this is a really important feature of Formate. In other words, if you've got 1,000 pages in your print output, it will split this into perhaps 600 pages, as many of the invoices contain more than a single page. Splitting in discrete documents or jobs is really useful, as we can apply logic to individual pages, and can of course deliver each document in a different way. Now in this sample you can see the first job is only a page long, but for example the last job contains 2 pages. We can now map the data we want to bring across to our final document, or we can perhaps use one of the fields to drive another process. A good example may be we would map an email address to allow us to generate an email at a later date. Now we can simply map the whole page, or more commonly we would map individual elements. So for example, we may take this address block here and give it a unique field name. And if we have a look here, we can see all the fields that we've created. So for example, we've got an invoice date here, an invoice number, and we've got an account code. And in fact, we use the account code later in this application to do a database lookup to retrieve a delivery mechanism to finally deliver this document to its chosen destination. We can also create multiple data maps. So in this case, we could have a second page data map that maps the data in a slightly different way. Now a good example of this would be if we have a multi-page invoice and the first page is different from the second or perhaps the last page. So perhaps we make separate data maps and we create some logic in our Formate process to decide which page of the data it's actually looking at. Let's now look at the Formate layout window. So this is where we can design the final document. The layout window provides a really powerful design tool, and it's where we can import images and we can move them accurately around the page. You'll notice we've got a ruler here to allow very fine positioning of elements on the page, and we can also lock the foreground and background. If we want to put data elements on the page, for example we want to put one of our mapped data fields, we can pick up a left justified text object and we can position it on the page, and we can pick from our fields that we created earlier. So in this case let's pick an account code, and we define the font, in this case Times New Roman, and perhaps a colour and a size, and we can then position that accurately wherever we need it on the page. In a similar way, if we want to put a barcode object on the page, we can again choose the field we want. So let's say in this case an invoice number, and we'll pick from one of the built-in functions the date from the system. So we'll add that as well, and it's going to concatenate that into one barcode. And we can now choose our barcode symbology. Formate supports nearly every barcode symbology that you'll need. In this case we'll use good old simple code 39, and we'll set the height of the barcode. And all we need to do now is position that, and Formate will take care of the rest. We can also have multiple overlays that we turn on and off with logic, and in this case we've got terms and conditions as a separate overlay which appear as a duplex print on the reverse of the on the first page. Obviously you need a duplex capable printer if you're going to print like this. You'll see here all of the different Formate design objects. So we have the ability to put lines on the page, boxes and circles. And you'll notice as well all the merged data fields have the @ symbol. So this is how we can work out very quickly what is a merged field, and obviously what is a label, in this case the customer invoice address. And just to recap, any of the objects on the page can be turned on and off with logic, so that if we have different company logos or different company promotions dependent on the customer, we can switch these on and off with logic. Now we've finished our design, we can aim the output at a printer. So in this case we're going to set up a print run, and we simply go to the Add option and browse to our destination printer. In this case it's a Kyocera, and we add that, and you can see that appears in our print run list here. You'll also notice we've got some printers that are disabled. These are shown in red, and we've also got some additional print runs that are creating some HTML output, and also a PDF containing all of the output from this particular application in one large PDF. Now if all we were going to do was to take the input data, add a form overlay and print, this is all we need to do now, and we can save our application. However, if we want to do something more advanced, this is where we can use the real power in Formate, which is the scripting language, and we'll have a look at that next. The Formate scripting engine unleashes the real power of Formate, and it's loosely based on MS scripting or VB type syntax. Now it helps if you've got some programming background, but in reality any moderately techie savvy person can pick up the Formate scripting pretty quickly with some training. Now the scripts are divided into 4 types of scripts: global, spool file open, job open and page open. So I'll quickly describe what these are. Globals is really where we can define variables that are used throughout the other scripts. So in this case we've got a number of strings, integers, and we've got a constant set up, in this case containing a directory, so it saves us having to type this each time. If we have a look at the spool file open script, this is the script that controls how we handle the incoming data. And basically in this case the script is splitting the large spool file into individual jobs, and it's doing that by basically looking at the page number, and when the page number goes back down to 1 it knows to split it. And we have a variant of this that works in a similar way with an account number. Now you're probably looking at this script for the first time thinking, you know, blimey, how do I set that up myself? But actually this is a script that ships free of charge, and you can go to the sample scripts, pick it up, and in this case here we are, divide spool file into separate jobs, and all we do is copy that to the clipboard and we can paste that into our window. So actually some of the scripts you don't actually need to understand, and in fact a lot of this obviously is comments in the green here. The job open script is, if you remember our description earlier, a job is actually a discrete document, so this is how we can discretely control a specific invoice within your spool run, and likewise we can control pages within that specific invoice. And this is where we're doing some interesting ones on this particular application. We've got a database lookup here that's looking at the account code, and depending on the account code we're going to a database and we're retrieving a delivery mechanism, and we're then creating an email, and a little bit further down we're creating some PDF output, and we're using a function called create custom PDF, where we can define the folder structure we write it to and the name of the PDF it's going to create. So this is really important, that when we create a PDF we give it a meaningful name. Now again, you're probably looking at this thinking, how do I understand and access all of these scripting functions? Well, the help in Formate is really good. And if we go and look for the scripting guide, we can look at all the built-in functions by category, and you can see all the different types of functions within Formate. So we can control Excel spreadsheets, faxing, and in this case we're going to have a quick look at PDFs, and these are the functions for creating PDFs. And we've got one here called create custom PDF, and this is a really common function that we use to create a PDF with a meaningful file name and to a location that we want to put it into, and it explains the syntax and all the individual arguments. But the best thing is at the bottom here we have an example, so you can literally cut and paste that and copy that into your scripts. Obviously you need to edit the relevant field names, and obviously the paths may be different, but it gives you a really good starting point, and even our developers use the help all the time. And finally in this script here we're creating some metadata. In this case it's sort of a pseudo XML file that we output to a document management system, so we can store an archive of the invoice, with all the relevant metadata like the invoice name, account name, date, etc. Once we're finished with our form type, we simply save it, and at this point we can actually preview it if we want to by going to our preview window and running a preview. And in this case it runs the full job from start to finish, and we can pick up any errors immediately. So if we run that now, down the bottom here we'll be seeing what we're executing. You can see we're creating the web pages, we're creating the print runs, we're creating PDFs, and you can see there we're printing now, and we're creating the email output at the end of the job. So it's currently doing the print run here, and finally it's creating the emails that go out. We then get a preview window that allows us to have a look at our documents, and we can scroll through them and check that they're okay, and we can even look at the duplex side. Once we're happy that the logic is right and we've tested it in the configurator environment, we would simply save that. In this case we've already saved it, and we're now ready to load the Formate server.